Another day, another session that starts off with us grinding. Eventually, that has to end at some point, right? I'm not gonna be grinding for the rest of eternity, am I? Well, I suppose the critical hit to start things off is nice to see. And come to think of it, this bit of raw footage looks shorter than the previous one so far. I'm really hoping that's a good sign that we're gonna make some actual progress here. Definitely looks like Flender is about to go level 9, and he's probably the most troublesome of our current crew to get to that level. Son of a bitch, just need a little more to get it done, and it's kind of funny how much that experience bar is appreciated. It's the sort of thing you generally expect to see in one form or another in a lot of role-player games. So the fact that the first generation didn't have one is kind of odd, really. But they stuffed that cartridge with absolutely everything they could manage to get in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have the room to add that small thing in with everything else that was in the game at the time. By modern standards, the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color aren't all that different from one another. But I'm sure for the people at Nintendo working on the games they'd release for their own system, every bit of processing power and memory was very much appreciated, and they were innovative enough to include their own battery into the cartridge for Generation 2 in order to keep track of time in the game. So I can tell you, from personal experience, when that battery dies, there's no way to play the game on its original console anymore, since when you shut down the Game Boy Color, it will glitch out and not remember the save file properly. While the people making the games knew they had a hit of some kind or another on their hands, they didn't know just what kind of hit. At the very least, they weren't expecting the franchise to be one of the most profitable things on the entire planet several decades after this game. And I'm pretty sure that sense of not knowing just how successful the franchise was going to be is part of the reason why the earlier years just felt so much better. Everyone working on Pokemon wanted it to grow and wanted to do everything they could to increase the chances that this was going to be a bigger hit, not just some forgotten flash in the pan. So they used the limited hardware they had to push things to the absolute limit. Hell, I have the distinct feeling that that attitude when designing games in general disappeared somewhere around the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era of consoles. By that point, the only real limiters for games were the controllers, something Nintendo tried to work around with questionable success on the Wii, and the imaginations of the people working on the various games. Seriously, it is insane to think that for the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Color, the amount of space you could use to make a game was around 2 megabytes. Now we've got people making games that are over 100 gigs large, and usually they're that massive simply because the people making them are too lazy to do some various techniques to save space. Now, I'm not saying that the more massive a game is on a hard drive, the more likely it is to be bad. I'm saying the increased space to work with makes it so numerous game designers aren't as worried about what they can or can't stuff into the game in terms of storage. Now the biggest problems are how much time do they have to work on everything before the company just releases it without their say-so, and how much executive meddling they get from people who only see dollar signs, not fun experiences or interesting stories to tell. And that's yet another level 9 member of the team, and look at that! Villaram learned a new move that could actually be useful in causing damage. Take notes, Splendor. You could have learned Gust as well, since you're a flying type. Anyway, Gramash is the only member of the team who isn't level 9 at the moment, and I doubt he's gonna have any trouble getting there. Definitely going a lot faster for us now, and according to the next bit of raw footage, we'll be heading towards the next town within this clip. We won't quite make it to the gym battle, apparently, but hey, I'll take what I can get. And what we're getting is progress here. Well, time to say goodbye to this Pokemon Center, or at least I hope it's goodbye. We've literally been here longer than we've been to our own home. That's probably its own kind of depressing. Granted, we might have to use it a few more times on our way to the next town. There are some trainers between Cherry Grove and the next location on the map. Still, since I decided to slow things down due to the progress we're about to make, it felt right to tell the nurse we're leaving. I'm pretty sure she's wondering why it took us so long to pack up and go, and I would not be surprised if the people in there are making bets for how long it'll take for Chris to come back. Well, we've certainly trained for battle. We'll see if that adds to our own fun. Kid, you just picked the wrong person to try to break your losing streak against. And why would it matter if Chris looks weak? It's her Pokemon who are gonna fight, not her. Definitely gonna be very one-sided in our favor here. The poor kid is at the same level as the wild Pokemon. I'm sure that's gonna make things rough for him as he tries to train up at some point. Well, you kinda have to train your Pokemon before you start challenging people and expecting to win. You're not gonna get anywhere by just throwing yourself at battles mindlessly, though I suppose it would look like we were doing just that if you watched us grinding up before moving on. As much as I like the idea of the whole contact information thing in this game, the problem is that we only have so many slots to have phone numbers. So I'm gonna be saying no quite a few times. When I finally get around to working on Soul Silver, we'll certainly see the phone in action quite a bit, and we'll grow to be annoyed by all the people calling us, even if it helps make the world feel more alive. It's one of those ideas that looked good on paper, and they decided after trying it for Johto that it wasn't worth bringing to the other regions. I have a lot less issue with the company not returning that little gimmick than the whole Mega Evolution thing and some other various interesting ideas over the years. So, the only reason this kid beat the other kid is because he had a level 2 Pidgey to go with his level 4 Rattata. I mean, sure, these kids aren't supposed to be especially great trainers, They're what the world actually expects from people just starting off their journey instead of the insane levels of competence you see from the player character and their rival. And now I can't help feeling like a bit of an ass since we're already showing there's a vast gulf between our ability and the sort of talent you need to try to be the best like no one ever was. Indeed, you've got to work pretty hard at it, and I personally know that I don't have it in me to be an especially major champion for any given length of time, which in its own way makes it a bit awkward that absolutely every Pokemon game, our goal has to be to try to become the regional champion, even the fan games. I know I'm not that good, but it's the only way to beat a given game since that's the main thing that lets the credits roll. Guess it's Stuart's turn to get on the scoreboard. At the moment, Gramash is just sitting there alone on it, with 4 wins, just 1 short of ace status. And Stuart immediately faces a bug that's weaker than bugs that he's been training against. I know it's early game and the trainers are supposed to be on the weaker side, but I'm pretty sure the trainers in Viridian Forest had stronger Pokemon than the wild ones around them at the very least, even if it wasn't by much. Don't tell me I'm gonna be spending a good amount of this LP just constantly making Johto look bad in comparison to Kanto. I honestly don't want to be that guy. Lurker is on the board as well. We'll see how long he and Stuart stay on the team, since, well, they're among the first scorers. Oh, that can always be annoying, and it's not like you have a lot of options if you're on a losing streak to capture more Pokemon, since, well, those balls can really drain your wallet. The only sources of income in the game are winning battles and selling whatever you happen to have in your bag at the time. Though some fanfics claim that if you're a sponsored trainer, you get some measure of income from whoever's sponsoring your journey month by month. I wonder what started that sort of thing in Pokemon fanfics. I damn well know that was never mentioned in the anime or manga at any point. Well, I'm sorry to say it's generally a bad idea to take a nap in the middle of a field like this. I mean, sure, he's not in the spot where Pokemon will ambush him like tall grass or in a cave. Still, sunburns can be a real bitch to deal with. And it's not like the game tells us in the area if it's 90 degrees or 60 or something. Temperature means nothing to the various characters in a game. They could just as easily run around in a tundra as they would inside of a volcano. Hell, some fire Pokemon are listed as having temperatures warmer than the surface of the sun, and they don't seem to hurt anyone just by being near them, or spontaneously start any fires just by being near the grass or trees. So, yeah, I suppose he doesn't have to worry about freezing or dehydration or something. Anyway, it definitely feels insulting that this kid is sending a level 2 Caterpie out at us. That is literally weaker than the wild Pokemon we've been training against for several clips now, and I'm pretty sure that if someone is weaker than the wild Pokemon in the first area of the game, they are in for a very rough time as a Pokemon trainer. It might have been a better idea to send out Splendor instead of Bellram. At least, Splendor has no risk of being poisoned. Oh god, if I run back to the Pokemon Center because one of my team was poisoned by a low-level trainer, that would feel kind of embarrassing to me. As if the fact that I wanted to leave Cherry Grove for good isn't enough reason to not want to go back. Sure. It wasn't all that big of a worry since Bellram managed to take that guy down in a single hit, but still, it felt worth saying at the time. Really? 1 HP is considered a critical hit from this guy? Oh dear, I may have over-leveled. Again, the whole box thing really undermines the whole forming friendships with all Pokemon thing that the protagonists of every generation are supposed to be like. Especially since that's going to be kind of a major story element in this game compared to the last one. Huh. People are just leaving these laying around on the ground. I hope whoever dropped this noticed the hole in their bag and fixed it. Well, looks like we're likely, going to be sticking with this guy for the rest of the game. After all, even though it's not very useful for the first gym, and probably not for the second either, Bellsprout is actually a pretty solid grass type. Seriously, outside of the grass starters for the first 2 generations, Bellsprout and its evolutions feel like the best grass types to pick as far as I can tell. As far as the main 3 types go, really, grass, water, and fire, the grass just feels like it gets the short end of the stick. Sure, it takes longer to find wildfire types, but they're generally all pretty solid, if not outright amazing, for the style of fighting I like to do. It doesn't hurt that the stats lean towards the kind of combat that I generally go for in Pokemon games. Pure offense and speed, not much put into defense or in health in comparison to other typings. Hell, if it wasn't for the whole weaknesses and resistances thing, I'm pretty sure I'd stick with mostly electric and fire types in these games. Anyway, excuse me for fast-forwarding again. Apparently I'm going back to Cherry Grove like I didn't want to. After all, we just gained a new member of the team that's likely to be on it for a while, even if she's not suited to the next gym like poor Flender here. And I'm sure I'm gonna do some grinding to get her up to the same level as everyone else, 9. So much for the idea that I'm gonna make it to the next town in this clip. Guess I'll let myself get my hopes up. And it probably says something about my sheer lack of respect for Faulkner as the first gym leader, that I have 3 Pokemon that are completely unsuited for fighting him on my team right now. Venus, Flender, and Lurker just aren't gonna gain any wins in that gym, and I am completely unconcerned that half my team I'm bringing is gonna be able to do appreciable damage to flying types while avoiding getting hit by super effective moves.